You've just tuned in to the nexus of inspiring, encouraging, and uplifting leaders who share their successes and their failures. Insights that will motivate, cultivate, educate, and illuminate your path to a very bright future. Welcome to Shaping the Future podcast. Here's your host, Gregg Kell.
Hello, Future Shapers, and welcome to this edition of Shaping the Future podcast. And today, we're going to meet Sharat Potharaju, the co-founder and CEO of Mobstac. Sharat, welcome. Please take a few moments to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Great. Thanks a lot, Greg. Great. Thanks for having me on your podcast. Hello, everyone who are listening in. Like Greg said, my name is Sharat Potharaju. I'm a co-founder and CEO of a company called Mobstac. Mobstac is an early-stage company which has been building products in the mobile space for the last couple of years. Our current focus is basically building products that merge the online to the offline. So what we've essentially done is taken technologies like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi that all of us are familiar with and created a marketing and analytics platforms which small and medium businesses and enterprise use to do marketing and engaging their customers.
Excellent. Can you give us an example, a real world example that our listeners could really understand?
Sure.
An application.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So our flagship product is a product that we call Beacon Stack. Beacons are a new and upcoming technology that people should be familiar with, but essentially beacons run on what is called the Bluetooth Low Energy. I mean, all of us are familiar with Bluetooth. It's been around for many years. But Bluetooth Low Energy is basically a new protocol which essentially does not require you to use any kind of pairing with like how we use Bluetooth currently with speakers or headsets. What the advantage of doing this is Bluetooth beacons are essentially these small hardware devices that can be put inside your physical locations. It could be a car dealership, it could be a small coffee shop, it could be a restaurant, any place where there's a physical business and there's a footfall happening. And when you put this small device called a beacon inside your store, you have the ability to reach out to consumers walking in on their mobile devices. What we have done using Beacon Stack is basically built a marketing and analytics platform using this Beacon Bluetooth technology. And this is currently being used by over 500 customers right now in about 40 countries across the world. United States is one of our primary marquee customer base.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing this innovative technology. Do you think that the value of, say, proximity marketing with beacons will end up being disruptive in typical small business advertising or marketing campaigns?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think you spoke the sentence that I typically share with a lot of customers and prospective partners. The reality is, the first thing that people should understand is that, there's so much euphoria about e-commerce and the excitement of everyone buying online. But the reality is, even if you take a very mature e-commerce market like United States, there's barely 7 to 8%, or maybe at the most 10% in certain verticals, which actually happens online. A substantial amount of it actually happens offline. And I think the whole idea of merging online to offline is kind of the mantra, or basically the holy grail that people have been trying to solve with using various technologies over the last couple of years, or say the last decade. But the thing that proximity marketing with beacons kind of fundamentally helps is two things. One is the fact that it's natively supported by Android and iOS. Of course, the implementations differ from operating system to operating system, but it's created a platform where both Android and iOS operating systems have started supporting BLE, or Bluetooth Beacon protocol natively. That's the first thing. The second thing is the fact that the cost is very, very cheap. So what I mean by that is the small and medium business, like the ones I mentioned, car dealerships, coffee shops, restaurants, just small stores inside malls, they could spend as low as $100 a month or even lesser than that to be able to actually put one of these devices and be able to use or do marketing very, very seamlessly. Now, that's the reason why it's very disruptive is the first point that I talked about is scale and distribution. Practically every device in the world is either an Android or an iOS almost significantly. The second, sorry, my voice, but the second is basically the fact that the cost is prohibitively cheap. I mean, it's unbelievably cheap. You've never had this opportunity in the past. Only large, big box retailers like Macy's, etc., could actually use technologies which allowed you to be able to engage with offline people. They use sophisticated things like infrared cameras, counting footfalls. Nothing that worked really effectively. Now, finally, you actually have a technology which has distribution because it helps you reach out to mobile devices in everyone's pockets. Second, it allows you to do it at such cheap cost, which allows any small and medium business to be able to engage. And I think these are two primary reasons. I think beacon technology or proximity marketing based on beacons will be very, very, very successful and very disruptive in the coming years.
Excellent. And there you have it, Future Shapers, a value bomb dropped by Sharat. Small businesses have a new ability to apply in a low-cost manner to engage customers via mobile in a way that helps to express the value of their business and ultimately generate revenue, new customers, improve sales. Outstanding, Sharat. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
We in the Future Shapers audience are passionate about entrepreneurship and innovation. Innovation, like what you're doing here, is a manner to generate higher productivity, profits, and growth. Tell me, Sharat, what are you personally most passionate about today?
I think what I'm really passionate about is the ability for me to be able to create a small dent in the small and medium business world. I mean, I'll accept that it didn't happen to me immediately. I've been on a journey for a few years trying to build the right product. But as I learned more and more about the small and medium business world, the livelihoods that it supports, the kind of diversity of products and offerings that small and medium businesses across the world, particularly in the United States, has, I believe that, given the paradigm of mobile and the ability for you to be able to reach these small and medium business owners, there are very interesting products and services that can be built. So our goal and our primary focus right now for innovation is to see how we can use mobile as a vehicle for creating innovative products that change and disrupt the way small and medium businesses actually across the world will be engaging and will be able to make money using our products and services.
Excellent. I like your humility too, Sharat. Someone you might have heard about in the past, his name is Steve Jobs. He wanted to make a dent in the universe. You're just going after a small dent in the B2B space. Humility is a good thing, I have to say.
I agree. I think entrepreneurship makes you humble, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, life happens, doesn't it?
That's true.
What we have found, Sharat, is that sometimes life throws us a curveball. It's that entrepreneurship makes us humble.
Right.
Would you share with a story with our Future Shapers listening today, a little bit about your worst experience as the CEO of Mobstac?
There are so many that I can't. I need that. This is one of those questions where you look back and you start thinking about everything that you did wrong, and there's so many of them, so it's a difficult pick. But let me tell you about my worst experience. One of my biggest mistakes, I would say, as a young or an inexperienced CEO. And that's one of hiring, which I think a lot of people talk about. And I'm sure a lot of business owners and people who've been building companies talk about hiring mistakes. But one of the big realizations I had about my hiring mistake is slightly different, if I may like to believe. The fact that I hired the right person to drive my sales in my early days, not for this product, but for a product that I was building before. But he was a great guy, but I just realized that he was the wrong guy for the role that I actually had in mind. Now, the big realization I had there was the fact that it's really, really important when you're trying to build your own business in the early days to be as hands-on as possible. It's very easy for you to, get carried away, get one or two quick wins under your belt and think, you've matured enough. Now it's time to start adding more people under you who will basically be able to manage. You step away from the scene and then you just, you're the show master who's basically just going to move some hands and legs, and things will just go according to plan. And I think that's the big hard lesson that I really learned, which is basically your ability to hire the right people or making hiring mistakes invariably doesn't mean you've hired an incompetent person. I was always worried about that because everyone told me about how hiring mistakes can be fatal to a company. What I didn't realize is when people talk about hiring mistakes, it's not about hiring a wrong person. The person I hired was really competent. It's just that he was the wrong fit for me and at the wrong time, at the wrong stage of the company. And so the big valuable lesson for me was be always hands-on. I mean, if you had to risk it, try to risk being more hands-on than being hands-off, because I think the bottom line is if you might make mistakes, the advantage of being hands-on is you will course correct much faster. Whereas when you're hands off and you start adding these layers, by the time the message trickles down to you or gets distilled down to you, it's much longer than you want it to be. So that's kind of something that's echoed to me all through and through. I've tried to keep that lesson as close to my ears as possible so that I don't make the same mistake again.
Thank you, Sharat. Another value bomb. Be always hands-on. Work hard to build the right team, the right people, product, and process in order to maximize value for customers. That's always a very good process. Outstanding. So you have been, when did you first found Mobstac? How long have you been in this?
8 years, 2009, 2010. So I would say about 8 years.
Excellent.
And counting.
Tell me, here we are about a little bit over halfway through the year 2018. When you look forward later in this year, what is your most important goal?
Most important goal. I think for me, right now, the most important goal is basically getting the know-how of my product, the primary product, Beacon Stack, evangelizing the product under all the verticals that I'm really looking for. So what I mean by that is there is still some limited understanding with respect to the product and about Beacon technology and what is possible and what is not. There are people who basically don't understand the nuances of how the technology works. There are people who have not yet discovered it. So right now, for my goal or my priority that I've set for 2018 is focusing on evangelizing and building the market for beacons as a technology. Because I know as I evangelize and as I get more people into the fold, there is enough growth and enough of a market for people like Beacon Stack and more to be able to grow. So my number one priority for 2018 has been evangelizing, reaching out to the right small and medium business verticals, the right associations, bringing in on board the right partners, etc.
So as you evangelize and as you build out, basically creating an understanding or awareness of the value provided to small businesses by this proximity marketing, what do you intend to achieve? How will you measure the success as you move through 2018?
That's a great question. I think two ways. One is basically looking at our customer satisfaction, which is basically looking at things that our customers have been saying. Obviously, we've had a mixed bag. We've had people who've been extraordinarily happy. There have been people who've not been very happy, mostly because they don't understand the limitations of technology, of this particular technology. And that typically happens in a market where there is new and there's a lot of innovation, so people don't expect things to work the way they initially intended to be. That's one large way to be able to do it. The second way that I feel is the fact that I want to be able to get as many partners working with. What do I mean by partners? I think there are several players in the market who already deep expertise into specific verticals, working and servicing their local communities, their local small and medium business economies, or into specific verticals like people who are providing services, whether it's building websites for small and medium businesses, people who provide Wi-Fi to these small and medium business, etc. My goal is to be able to align with them, because my realization is that most of these small and medium businesses typically work with a cohort or certain set of vendors, people whom they trust, whom they have aligned to. And I believe that if I bring the right set of partners working with Beacon Stack, I'll be able to line up the right customers. So satisfaction and the right partners, those are the two things that I'm essentially looking at.
Satisfaction and partners. I'm a simple guy, Sharat. I always like to measure in terms of revenue and profits. How about that?
That's always a good number.
Oh,
the numbers never lie.
Exactly. So the hard steel of reality as
That's
measured
right.
by the numbers that are actually out there.
Right. Absolutely.
So as you are basically evangelizing, helping to attract the right kind of partners, and ultimately expanding the let's call it the install base of your network, I'll bet that you are facing some challenges. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing right now?
That's a good question. I think the number one challenge, I think, is something that I just alluded to, which is basically that customers are very excited about new technology without actually understanding the limitations and the advantages of something new like this. So what I mean by that is most people are very excited about what beacons can do, but need not necessarily understand exactly how the delivery works. So for example, it works very differently with iOS devices. It works differently on an Android device. So with the new technology, what really happens is that people don't do enough research. People don't understand. The expectations are very different. The second challenge that we've seen is that when you look at marketing, and this is obviously a new channel for marketing, there are no benchmarks with respect to this new marketing channel. So what do I mean by that? If you're a marketer, if you're a small and medium business owner, you don't have a certain benchmark on what to expect. If you, for example, run a Facebook ad, you run a Google search marketing dollars, if you spend, you have some understanding on how much you expect to get back, because that's a channel that's been around for some time. What we currently are facing is people expect or have warped sense of expectation. So when people say, hey, I had 10 people walk in today, but I had only 2 people click through. And I'm saying, oh, that's phenomenal. Like 2 people, that's 20% click-through rate. Which channel would you ever get 20% click-through rate? But people will get stuck on, oh, but why are 8 people not clicking? I'm giving such an amazing offer. So people don't obviously look at this as a marketing channel. So they have very warped expectations. So I think with a new technology like this, that's something that we need to kind of build, and it's going to take some time. And that's something that we're actually working on right now.
I understand, Sharat, the adaptation, the understanding, and the application of this new technology is certainly a challenge. People don't change really fast all the time, because really it comes down to people. So how can you overcome these challenges? Do you have any plans for that?
That's a good question. I think a lot of this is about evangelizing. It's about putting the right place. I think if the primary marketing and acquisition channel for us is our blog. We have a very thriving blog. We have thousands of visitors that show up on our site every day. trying to read and learn about our technology. And we have successfully been able to build all this without spending any ad dollars, only because we have put everything that we have learned on our blog. And that's essentially the way we've been able to evangelize and talk to them about the limitations of the technology, understanding how it works, and teaching them use cases, literally helping them each step on the way, explain to them how this can essentially be used successfully. And I feel like overcoming these challenges are going to be exactly the same process. Like, for example, one of the things that I constantly struggle with right now is basically this interesting dichotomy where people want amazing results, at the same time don't want it to be spammy, which is very interesting, because as a marketer, that's a very interesting balance that you need to buy. Because at one end, you want it to be able to reach everyone. At the same time, you don't want to sound or appear like a spam, because you just don't want to carpet bomb everyone who comes in your way. How do you balance that? And that's the nuanced understanding about your specific use case, the specific vertical, where exactly are you using this proximity marketing service. And each vertical will have its own data and its own learnings. I think our goal is to be able to chronicle that, put that in, write the right amount of information, and make it more a teaching ground than anything else. And I think once we start teaching them and learning from their experiences, most of these challenges kind of get solved themselves.
It definitely is a process, and it takes time. And I would think that spam perception, it's so much in the eyes of the beholder. You can never be all things to everybody. You're always going to get people that are going to perceive that as spam.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, so we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to go in the Wayback Machine, way back, all the way back to 2010, when you were just getting started.
Right.
Remember back in that time when you were the foundation of Mobstac, what did you do before starting this business?
I was an investment banker with Merrill Lynch in New York.
Excellent. So think about that time. You what was holding you back, or what concerns did you have at that time about stepping out on your own, crossing that chasm from the quote unquote security of being an investment banker into the uncertainty, and challenges associated with having your own business? What was holding you back?
That's a great question. I think it's just the unknown, right? It's just the unknown. I think the first thing I would like to say is an anecdote, right, which I tell everyone, every entrepreneur who wants to be an entrepreneur, or every wannabe entrepreneur. And the joke is, the reality, I guess it's not a joke. The reality is that when I was an investment banker working on Wall Street, I used to coming back home around 2 a.m, slept like a baby till about 7:30 in the morning, and then went back into office. Now I come back home or go back home at 6:30 in the evening, and I can't sleep at night.
Yeah.
Because the reality is that when you have your own startup or when you have your own business, there is no switching off. There is no checking out. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You might be holding a baby in your hand, that you might be having a drink with your friend, you might be watching a movie with your wife or spouse, but still there's this lingering thought going on in your head on how could that have been done better? Should I have hired that person? Could I have done something XYZ? I think that's the huge problem. And I would say, yes, going back to your question, I don't think I knew that at that time, but that is basically the biggest difference between actually having a job versus actually doing something by yourself.
And how did you overcome that challenge?
I don't think I've really overcome it. That's the truth. I mean, it's a constant struggle. I think I try to take a break whenever I can, but your mind never shuts off.
Let me ask this in a different way. Sure. Why did you form Mobstac? What is your why statement?
The why statement is pretty similar to what you just said at the beginning, which is basically trying to, quoting Steve Jobs is terrible, especially because you can't be a Steve Jobs. But I think I really wanted to make a dent. I really wanted to make a dent in any small way or kind. And for me, creating impact was really, really important. And everyone has their own driver, and for me, it was creating impact. I think money was going to happen on the way. My belief was that the fastest way to be able to create impact, touch as many lives as possible, is basically through technology disruption, because that's the only way you can have a disproportionate amount of impact. And I chose mobile because the mobile generation was starting in 2009, 2010. I mean, the impact when I look back at some of the presentations I was making to brands and businesses in 2009 and 2010 about how mobile was going to be completely disruptive, I think it overtook everyone's imagination. And I think for me was, can I take a technology like the mobile and be able to reach as many lives as possible in interesting ways? And that's been the lingering background thought process that I've always had. And me and my co-founder basically decided to move back to India and do this. And right now we obviously have offices both in New York and in India. But it's been an interesting journey.
And there you have it, another value bomb dropped by Sharat. He is driven to impact the small business ecosystem through maximizing value through their engagement with customers via mobile.
Great.
Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I would say so. I would like to add that we are working on other things beyond Beacon Stack, and yes, small and medium businesses are our current focus, and but we have a lot of other ideas that are in the pipeline right now, which would hopefully be helpful and more valuable to verticals beyond the small and medium business. But I think everything else you covered it really well.
Can you drop any hints? You were sort of alluding to the next step.
We basically have products which basically use Wi-Fi. We're trying to figure out if there are ways in which we could use a combination of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So there are some interesting use cases that we've been building. We're also trying to figure out if there are ways in which we could use capture data more efficiently offline that can essentially be used or retargeted online through Google or Facebook or what have you. So our goal is to basically be able to make a much tighter integration between the online and offline, and we're trying to do everything we can with respect to that.
Excellent. Tight integration between the physical presence of a business and the digital presence of a business.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Outstanding. Okay, so tell me now, describe your ideal client as we are moving from 2010 all the way back to the present. Tell us now, what is your ideal customer now?
I think our ideal customer right now is basically any business which has a physical location, has a reasonable number of footfalls coming into their things, and is looking for a medium or platform to be able to engage with these drop-ins. So our customer base basically has very interesting vertical use cases. We have people from real estate. We have people from, like I mentioned, coffee shops and restaurants.
Okie dokie.
And events. So, sorry, you were saying something?
Yes, in your in your time of moving from an investment banker to a successful entrepreneur, I would trust that you have received advice from different people whom you respect. What is the best advice you've ever received, of course, that you're willing to share with the Future Shapers audience?
I think the best advice that I've received is basically to get out of your comfort zone. So everyone knows what their comfort zone is. And, there's this fantastic saying about eat the frog first. I mean, that's basically what I'm trying to say, which is, for example, My comfort zone is not really sales. I'm pretty good at strategy. I'm very good at pulling numbers. I can put two and two together. I can think deep and far. Those are things that come to me naturally. Getting on a call with a customer, trying to sell the product, doing a hard sell, doesn't come to me naturally. In the beginning, my entire focus was, let's focus on what I'm good at. Let's not touch things that I'm not really good at. Let's try to build people around. And then one of my advisors pushed me to basically get out of my comfort zone, do things that really don't come to me naturally. And even though I've not really become an expert or I might have become reasonably better at any of these things, for example, sales in this case, but it's helped me get a lot more perspective. So, for example, right now, I basically take customer calls, not because I'm the best sales guy I have, but only because I think I need to be close to sales, to the sales process. And more importantly, I know that I'm doing the right job with having the right people on my team. So I think the best advice that I have received is the whole idea of playing a little out of your comfort zone. Not completely. I mean, you should know your strengths. You should play to your strengths, but just enough, just so that you come out of your comfort zone and you keep pushing that envelope every day a little bit. That way, it essentially gives you that buffer and that learning that you really need.
And there you have it, Future Shapers. Get the heck out of your comfort zone. Push the envelope just a little bit. Seeking to improve. Outstanding. We, in the Future Shapers community, are a big believer in continuous improvement and education. We like to read. Sharat, is there any book that you might recommend to our audience, and why?
That's a great question. I would love for people to read 0 to 1, which I'm sure has been suggested to you several times. Because that's a book which really talks about entrepreneurship in a very, very effective manner.
And that's by Peter Thiel, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Right. I think he really talks about disruptive creation of wealth and capitalism, so on and so forth. But I think he really captures that really well. That's one book I really would suggest you read. There's this other book called The Hard Truth About, I'm forgetting the name right now, but it's this, let me try to recollect. The Hard Truth About the Hardest Truth. I forget the complete name and it'll come back to me, but that's the other book. The third book, which I really have, which is slightly different, but I think it works very well, is a book called Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande, which is basically a book about how do you plan things. And the reason this is really, really important for me is because it gives you a sense of process, which is insanely important in a startup. I mean, it's not a sexy book. It's not something that people talk about, but it's a phenomenal book because it really helps you set a basic process in place. And every startup is a war zone. There's so much chaos, there's so much pandemonium, there is so much happening every day. It really helps you prioritize things. And I think that this book, Checklist Manifesto, really teaches you how to be able to prioritize things.
Thank you for sharing, Sharat. We, in the Future Shapers, understand that in the chaos, even in the chaos of a startup environment, it is simple actions and habits over time work together to create an outstanding future. What are you doing now, Sharat, to help to shape your either personal or professional future?
I think the first thing I'm doing is trying to work out a lot more. I've just seen that there's a direct correlation between me working out in the mornings and actually helping me get that clarity and getting a better sleep at night, which is really, really important. So if you'd ask me, there's one thing that I'm doing very actively that is helping my professional life, it's actually physically working out. That makes a big difference to me.
I agree 100% with you. And my suggestion to all of the Future Shapers out there listening is get a Fitbit. It is an awesome device. Get a Fitbit because it measures and sets you on the right path. Okay. So, well, thank you, Sharat, for sharing your background, the value that your company Mobstac provides, the challenges that you have been through, the direction that you're going in. Would you help for those listeners who might be interested? Please tell them how they could contact you.
Great. Before I say that, the name of the book just came back to me. It's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. That's
The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Okay.
It's written by this guy called Ben Horowitz, who's a phenomenal, very successful venture capitalist. The reason I like this book a lot is because he writes very beautifully about leadership. Leadership, again, is one of those things which sounds really cool and sexy. It feels like, it sounds like the general chasing into a battlefield with all guns glory. But unfortunately, it's not like that, right? And I think this guy captures leadership in a very interesting manner. He talks about the day-to-day challenges that you face as a leader, whether it's running a small 3-member team or running a 100,000 organization. And I think there are many things he writes about in this book, but I think he captures many of the themes about entrepreneurship really well in Hard Thing About Hard Things.
Excellent. Well, so thank you again for sharing that book. And how can, again, Sharat, could listeners contact you?
Great. I can be reached at Sharat, SHARAT, at Mobstac, MOBSTAC.com. Please feel free to drop me an email. You want to talk about entrepreneurship, you want to talk about books, you want to talk about Beacon Stack, about anything American politics. I love politics too. I'm more than happy to talk, chat, and you can obviously find me on LinkedIn. Please add me. It's Sharat Potharaju. And I look forward to staying engaged. Gregg, thanks a lot for having me.
And thank you, Sharat, for sharing with the Future Shapers audience. And to all Future Shapers out there who are listening, get ready for the next episode. It's right down the path. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a good day.
Thank you for joining this episode of Shaping the Future podcast. We leave you, Future Shapers, with this challenge. Act boldly today to shape your future, because if you don't, it will absolutely be shaped for you.